What does it feel like to truly be alive? Life is a complex experience which holds unique meanings for every individual. But to me, living is to face my challenges head on and readily eliminate strife. Last time, I whetted my blade and tested my might against the likes of multiple bosses. Despite my wins, I recognized that they were little more than the weakest champions in the land, and some weren't necessarily even enemies of mine. Now it was time to start preparing for the brewing war. I had spent the last 50 days gathering a veritable wealth of materials, and it was finally time to assemble the powerful equipment that I'd need if I wanted any chance at survival. War is brutal and leaves no real winners, but conflict was inevitable at this point. These 10 days were what I considered to be the last few peaceful days that I would have, a final window of quiet before everything started escalating, although it is a little too quiet. This is Hardcore Rebirth Part 7, The Calm Before the Storm. I hope you guys enjoy. I began my 51st day plagued and lost. While I waited for the plague to subside, I dug into the side of the cave and looked at potential baubles. Unfortunately, the broken heart in 2.7 is more difficult to make than it is in 3.0, since in 2.7 it requires Twilight Forest progression. Thus, it's not such a bad idea to use heart containers after all, so I just did that. I also looked at pendants, and while the Wrath pendant is hilariously overpowered, it was also much harder to obtain than the Pride pendant, which would almost always be active for me anyways, since I had the regen ring. The Gluttony pendant's faster eating speed would be nice, but it did require a rare drop from a difficult mob I could not be bothered to spend days looking for. Once the plague ran out, I cautiously left the cave and started making my way back. Of course, I got distracted by some shiny objects along the way. Web spiders are honestly some of the scariest mobs in the game. One moment you're vibing, and then the next you're trapped with slowness 5. Immediately following this, I had an entire procession of mobs chasing after me, which was pretty fun. As I tried to escape the endless stream of mobs, I heard ominous thundering in the background. My pants may or may not be yellow now. I dug my way up towards the staircase home, and finally, I got there. When I got home, I expanded the refractory a bit in order to process mithril more efficiently. Since I needed spectral silt, I had to break things down in order to get it. In my opinion, the most efficient way of doing this is taking useless totems and disintegrating them, since each one gives 3 silt and costs almost nothing if you have a mob farm. Using the mithril ingots, I crafted a mithril pickaxe, the final tool that I needed to unlock a jet black nether gem. To make magic logs for a radiant resonator, you can actually just brew any old logs with magic powder. Now, why would I want radiant quartz? Well, the main reason is that this will greatly improve my storage systems and also unlock a lot of important baubles like sunglasses. I got all 3 resonators I could craft and held on to them for now. One important thing to remember is that blocks cannot be within 1 block of either the soul sand or the infuser itself. For example, this lever broke my setup because it was 1 block diagonally away from the soul sand, so I had to remove it. In order to build an automatic quartz farm, I needed 3 block dispensers, which would take 6 soul urns. Time to mold harder than League streamers. I forgot to hit record on OBS, and as a result, all of my day 52 footage was lost. Here's a read-off though of everything that I wrote down in my notes regarding today, played over footage of my automatic radiant resonator tutorial. I crafted a gem cutter's table, made a load of soul urns, reached 80 spirits in the ancestral infuser, finished up the automatic radiant quartz, made a brazier and manifest lectern for easy storage access, and replaced all of my chests with radiant chests to upgrade the system. Alright, that's everything. Let's go ahead and move on to day 53. After spending a long night grinding out more experience, I made my way back to base. During that grind session, I got a totem of Undying Head to drop, so I slapped that onto a totem base and got yet another way to cheat death. It's a shame that Jamal Khashoggi didn't have one before going into the Saudi embassy. You know how my luck is. I got these 2 really sick bows from the skeleton grinder last night. Where would I be without a disc collection to rival Tommy's? Once I finally finished sorting my chests, I crafted the next bauble I had my eyes on, the sunglasses. Not only do they make me look sick, they also prevent me from ever getting blinded again, which would be immensely useful for avoiding a disabled sprint. Time to get a bow upgrade. This one even came with a very interesting enchantment by default. I was sorting items when suddenly double trouble hit.
That guy is getting rammed from behind harder than your ex-wife.
Although, to her credit, she doesn't buckle like that.
Or leave skid marks.
Man, I just love boning the ground. Bone mealing, that is. Seeing grape slimes fly is honestly one of the best things in this pack. They yeet themselves around like it's nothing. This bird basically does no damage, but I'd be lying if I said that the attack sequence isn't just pure beauty. They pick the mob up, then literally squeeze it to death in their claws. It took me a while, but I was finally able to craft a disenchantment table. Now I could remove enchantments from my old gear and transfer it onto new stuff, thus saving me from having to gamble levels away on mediocre enchantments in a regular enchanting table. The way this works is pretty simple. You put the item in that you want to break down, feed it a book, and the item will take heavy durability damage or get destroyed. In exchange, you get the first enchantment on the item you just broke down back as an enchanted book, which you can then apply to new gear. Way too many shrooms here. Seriously, even Portland can't consume this much in a year. I just got Unbreaking 3 on my bow as if it couldn't get any more disgusting. Unfortunately, it's a little too expensive to rename. Armed with my mithril pickaxe, I finally obtained my first onyx gems. The rest of the day was spent mining up onyx. In order to make my full set, I needed to get 41 onyx gems, which was 32 for the armor and 9 for the sword. While exploring, I found some mold that would be useful for making plague cures later. Then I mined up this rare nether mycelium, which is the only block that mold can grow on, and it's hard to obtain because it doesn't actually spread. Once I got to 43 onyx, I headed over to kill some blazes for the rods. I spent the first few minutes killing wither skeletons for their skulls. After a long time, I finally got back to my nether portal. When I got back to base, I crafted my full onyx set, unlocking what I would use for the rest of my entire playthrough. Fire, knockback, and damage resistance, it really couldn't get any better. I also crafted a greatsword to complete the ultimate tank set, which would grant me permanent strength 1 and even more damage resistance. My modifier rolls were garbage, but there wasn't anything a little reforging couldn't fix. You can actually use mithril to reforge onyx equipment. It's really balanced. Remember when these guys were scary? Yeah, neither do I. I was on my way to make a quick travel portal from the village to my base because walking this far every single time I wanted to sell some bones was just not worth it. I actually bought some plague cures from the doctor because they were decently cheap and super useful. Of course, I immediately regretted my decision as he promptly began selling 100% plague cures for just 1 extra emerald. I lit the portal and hopped in, but it turned out to just lead back to my original portal. This meant that I would have to walk all the way back. There was this neat little dungeon on the way home, but the loot was pretty awful. When will I learn to bring lapis? No matter, it was time to go mining. Somehow, I found diamonds before lapis, which was a little bit depressing, although I eventually located a small vein above a lava pool. I screwed up and accidentally took the chestplate out with only Unbreaking 3. It was fine since I had the disenchantment table to get good books, but it was a little frustrating. While recording, I forgot to dial my settings back up from 1 megabyte per second, so the footage looks like I filmed it on a Nokia phone. Yeah, basically unwatchable. The main things I did were start a mold farm, made full prot/lunar shield for onyx armor, crafted a slowness immunity ring with a nutty modifier, added both radiant quartz block variants to the flex wall, and brewed some elixirs to prep for future boss fights. The quartz production was quite efficient, although some of my items seemed to just disappear into the void. I'm not really sure about that. I also tried to close this door, but ended up amber herding the quartz instead. My bad. First, I pulled up the village coordinates, then I calculated the corresponding nether coordinates by dividing by 8. While gathering stone bricks to build, I had the amazing luck of running into a TNT zombie underneath my generator. Fortunately, nothing important was blown up, so it was an easy repair. Once that was done, I began bridging out to the place where the portal would be. This was a pretty scary task, as a single misplaced gas fireball could easily spell the end of me, but I somehow managed to survive until the end. As soon as the platform and portal were done, I hopped in and it worked. I'd successfully created a fast track between the village and my base. All that was left to do now was to improve the passageway and I was set. Building? Did someone say montage? Once the build was complete, I tested it out and it worked quite well. The buttons and slabs I was placing earlier were to prevent mobs from spawning, and this ice made my boat go faster than Ben Shapiro trying to justify a baseless claim. Time to complete some bounties for loot. Eventually, I want to get a bounty that lets me get large rewards, but 53 coal wasn't half bad for now. Plague doctors are super useful because they will actually throw flasks at you that cure plague if you stand near them. I wanted to bring one back to base, but I figured having quick travel to this village was good enough for now. I didn't do a whole lot else today besides running around testing my equipment on some unfortunate mobs. After a fun time eviscerating helpless monsters, it was time to get back to base. I was running low on food, so I started boning the marshmallows in the corner. I feel like I must be diabetic at this point, no? To restock my glare torches for a future Beneath expedition, I just filled up my inventory. Unfortunately, glare torches have been severely nerfed in 3.0, so enjoy the cheese while you still can. Apparently, some witches can actually drop spawn eggs. This was super bizarre, but it did mean that I could make a dual skeleton farm at the old location. With my dogs at my heel, it was time to head out to explore another village I had previously located. I had chosen to set out near the end of the day, which was kind of a bad idea because by the time I got there, it was nighttime. It was under siege, so I had to bail them out. Little did the villagers know, like Americans in Nicaragua, I had brought the enemy here in the first place. Getting back was pretty rough because it was pitch black. I couldn't wait to get vitamins, so my offhand torches wouldn't slow down my greatsword attack speed. Once I got back, I started heading to the main village to check for new bounties. There happened to be one that was actually quite decent, the Barbacoa Sun Chief quest. I remembered that there was actually a Sun Chief right near where I had completed the village highway, so I began to bridge over. This was a stressful situation, like before, but fortunately no gas came. When I got there, I grabbed the skulls all over the place. These weren't too useful for now, but I could make spaghetti later on and live out my Italian chef fantasies. This chubby fella was getting really annoying, so I began the fight. After it was over, I continued grabbing the resources here. The hay bales were of particular interest to me because each one was worth 9 entire wheat. And just like that, day 61 had arrived.